Welcome to Tech Blueprint, a window that lets you know the latest technology news in the world. At 3 a.m. on April 13, 2025, when Ichiro Yamada, president of Tokyo Chemical Industry, was staring at the real-time data screen of Shanghai Customs, this Chinese proverb suddenly pierced his heart like a steel needle. The numbers on the screen were shocking. Japan's photoresist exports to China plummeted 72% year-on-year, while the market share of Chinese local companies soared from 3% 5 years ago to 58%. This material empire, that once locked the lifeline of East Asian semiconductors with a patent Iron Curtain, is now being torn open by the new technology army on the other side of the Yangtze River. Flashing back to the cherry blossom season in 2023, the Japanese Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry followed the United States in waving flags and shouting, and included 19 types of photoresists in the export control list to China. At that time, Japanese executives toasted in Ginza to celebrate, believing that this cutting off the firewood from the bottom of the pot could shut down China's chip industry. Little did they know that in the laboratory in Zhongguancun, Beijing, engineers from Nanjing University of Optoelectronics were sneering at the RF photoresist samples that Japan had stopped supplying. "You are holding your neck, and China will directly change its cervical vertebrae." The turning point came at the winter solstice last year, when Tokyo Chemical's production line was shut down due to a sharp drop in orders. The Nenda Optoelectronics workshop in Nanjing Jiangbei New District was brightly lit. Their RF photoresist not only adapts to the 7nm process, but also has a 93% yield on Huawei HiSilicon's production line, which is 5 percentage points higher than the Japanese original. Just like the cold gun and cold artillery movement during the war to resist U.S. aggression and aid Korea, the Chinese used technical guerrilla warfare to stage a Jedi counterattack on the battlefield where the Japanese are best. At 2 p.m. on April 12, 2025, the laboratory in Shanghai, Shenyang suddenly burst into wolf-like cheers. Technical Director Lao Weng held the freshly released test report, and his hands trembled like a Parkinson's patient. The shelf life of their independently developed photoresist exceeded 18 months, which is half a year longer than similar Japanese products. The Japanese's sushi-grade preservation myth should be put into the museum. This traitor, who has worked in a Japanese company for 10 years now, slapped the report on the lawyer's letter sent by his former employer, which also printed the absurd accusation of stealing trade secrets. The real Avengers are staged in Jiangyin. In the factory of Jianghuawei, Xiaolin, a post-90s engineer, is leading his team to dissect Japanese waste barrels. They charge China $8,000 per ton for processing, but now China does it on its own, and the cost is only 1/10. The waste recycling system developed by this Tsinghua scholar wearing round-frame glasses can make Japanese chemical giants hold a meeting overnight to reduce prices by 40%. What's more, the recycling industrial park they built in Suzhou directly cut the production cost of photoresist to the price of Tokyo. The nightmare of the Japanese reached its climax in Zhuhai's Xiangzhou district. When Sato, the sales director of Torii Chemical, saw the Chinese customs data, the import of Japanese photoresist in Q1 2025 plummeted 89% year-on-year. The white paper on technology blockade against China in his hand suddenly became waste paper. On the other side of the Pearl River estuary, the photoresist Silicon Valley, with a total investment of $22 billion, is growing at a speed of one floor every 3 days. Of the 12 photoresist factories under construction around the world, 7 are flying the 5-star red flag. Among them, Zhuhai Ruinyu's electronic-grade fluorine liquid production line directly forced Japan's Showa Denko to report a loss. The final chapter of this counterattack was written on the Tokyo stock market in the early morning of April 13. When Japan's Shin-Etsu Chemical plunged 14% at the opening, Shanghai Minshin Technology's production line was handling the 1,000th ton of KrF photoresist. These blue barrels of liquid marked "Made in China" are about to be shipped to Changshan Storage's 12-inch wafer factory. The Japanese may have forgotten, Zhao Haijun, co-CEO of SMIC, wrote in his circle of friends, "It took them a full 15 years to break through the US photoresist blockade, while China only took 5 years and 3 days." This photoresist counterattack is just like the Great Shift of the Universe, written by Jin Yong, when the Japanese used patent shackles to trap China's hands and feet. Chinese engineers used their strength to fight against their opponents and practiced peerless martial arts in the field where their opponents are most proud. Just like the 2 bombs and 1 satellite broke through the technological blockade, today's breakthrough of semiconductor materials proves that any artificially constructed technological Berlin Wall cannot stop the innovation torrent of 1.4 billion people. Looking back, this material war that started with Stuxnet ended with a dimensionality reduction attack of Chinese standards. When the RF photoresist of Nanjing University of Science and Technology was installed on the ASML lithography machine, and when Jiang Huawei's recycling system counterattacked the Japanese market, the so-called patent hegemony had already been riddled with holes. Just like the truth that Dao Yu realized when he was controlling the flood, it is better to dredge than to block. Today's photoresist production line rushing along the Huangpu River is using Chinese-style innovation to declare, "The starry sea of scientific and technological civilization cannot accommodate any technological iron curtain." The next time you see the Chinese chip coming off the line at Huahong Semiconductor, don't forget that it is not only electrons flowing on the wafer, but also the all-night lights of the Suzhou laboratory and the residual heat of the concrete on the Zhuhai construction site, which also carries the hardcore romance of countless Chinese engineers to defeat magic with magic. After all, on the long march of science and technology, every blockade order is the best whetstone. Just 2 years after the Japanese ban, China's blade has been sharpened to a brighter level than the laser of a lithography machine.